Hello everyone, I'm Logical Gamer and welcome to something brand new. One of my friends tells me, hey, we're going to start a Nation Rollerplay server, do you want to join? And long story short, I decided to join. So, in case you don't know what a Nation RP server is, you are in control of a nation. Another players are also in control of another nations. You can either try to be a pacifist, trade with the other nations, make friend with another nations, or you can choose to go at war with another nations, gain territory, lose territory, develop new weapons, and overall it's just a really fun thing you can do to play with your friends or even with strangers. So, let's begin by seeing what nations are currently participating. Disclaimer. Everything you're about to see is 100% fictional and shall not be taken seriously, and any resemblance to real-life nations or countries is purely a coincidence. First of the bands, we got Venetian Republic. Country leader Enrica Dandola. Ideology elective monarchy. Languages Italian, English and German. Openness level, they have a pretty open society, a professional army, and their country origin is a civil war. They are located in the plains, and this is their flag. Next, we got the northern state of Russia. Country leader is Zugestunov Georgy Ivanovich. Their ideology is authoritarianism, their languages are Russian and English. They surprisingly are another really open society. They only have a semi-professional military and they are a pretty young nation. And of course, they are on the frozen land. This is their flag. Next, we got Ruberia. The country leader is Dmitry Petrenko. Dmitry Petrenko. Their ideology is oligo-communism. They speak French and Italian. They are also an open society, have a professional army, and they are a century-old state. They stay in the plains. This is their flag. Next, we got the Eisenwald Kingdom. The Eisenwald Kingdom leader is Queen Heidi Erlkönig. Their ideology is federal monarchy. They speak English and German. This is the first nation which doesn't have an open society, but it's actually semi-isolationist. They have a semi-professional army and they also are a century-old state. They stand in the frozen land and this is their flag. Following that, we got the Kriegarian Empire. Their leader is Emperor Henry le Krieg. Their ideology is an absolute monarchy and they speak English, German, French and Dutch. Their isolationism level is semi-isolated and their military type is a professional army. They are a century-old state and they withstand within the woodlands. This is what their flag looks like. Last but not least, we got my country, Latiana. Latiana leaders, there's actually not one, but 5, called the 5 Wise Leaders. Their ideology is Republic Socialist. They speak Latin. Their isolationism level is semi-isolationist. They have a professional military and they are a really young nation and they stand in the woodlands. And this is the flag. That's pretty much all of the nations that are currently in the server. I mean, technically there is another nation which should be Metal Line, but this guy hasn't even bothered to put his nation in the right section and doesn't even have a flag, so I'm not sure if he's going to actually be allowed to partake. Okay, so now that we have met the official countries, what's next? Well, this roller play, as you can probably guess, it's made with fictional countries, like real countries, like for example Italy, France, Germany, Switzerland, the United States, Mexico, England, anything you can think of, they don't exist. The history of this world, it's not really like sure. We don't know how this happened. However, what we do know, it's what the world looks like, and here we got a map. So, when the roller play is going to actually begin, which is tomorrow, I'm recording this video the 16th of November, and the roller play where we can actually start doing actions like declare war, do some trades, expand our territory, that will be allowed the 17th of November. So the current year it's 90-30, not really sure based on what, but basically we can only use 90-30 technology, so it's like the interwar period much or less, even though as I said, we are not really sure what is the story behind this world. So you can see that the world it's pretty colorful. Of course the blue it's the ocean, but what are these another colors? So, probably you can guess yellow, it's a desert, the light green, it's the plains, the dark green, it's the woodlands, but what about the other nations, like the other colors? So, light blue, it's the frozen land. The frozen land, as you can guess, it's mostly ice and really harsh territory. Purple, it's the tropical territory, which, ironically enough, nobody chooses alongside the desert. The orange one, it's the taiga. The taiga, it's kind of a middle ground between the frozen land and the woodlands, where it is kinda cold, but there is also a lot of wood. So, you know, it is interesting. So, as of today, 16 November, we don't know where we are going to get placed, because that's there are two roles, the nations, like the players, like me, and the admins. The admins, they are the one working behind the scene, making sure that like all of these think it's going to work, and I'm really excited. So the 17th of November, we are going to be told where on this map we are going to get placed. So in case you don't remember, I am in the woodlands, which means dark green. So I could spawn on the big island on the left, like maybe here, or in the middle, or down here. I could spawn in one of these really small patches in the middle island, which is kinda what I'm hoping for. Like, you know, the middle island, even though it's right in the middle, so it might be a target, it's pretty isolated. The only other nations are desert and the plains. Nobody choose desert. And the plains, there are only some countries, so if I could expand and make this entire island my own, that will give me a huge boost. Also, something I didn't say before, nations like the frozen land and the desert, since they have a really harsh like temperature, like you know, in the frozen land it's really cold and in the desert it's really hot, it's also really hard to get food. But to balance this out, nations that have like hard climate, they also have better resource like crude oil, metals, and fuel. While instead, nations like the plains and the woodlands, they have a easier time gathering food, but they have less raw resource. So I really hope I'm going to spawn in the middle island so I can capture the desert and hopefully get this really rare resource. Another place I could spawn is on the most right island, where there is a pretty big size of woodlands. So yeah, I really hope I spawn in the middle one, but as you can see, there's not really a lot, so I think it's really unlikely. It's really likely, instead, I think that I will spawn on the rightmost island or the leftmost island, which is not really ideal, but oh well, I guess we will know only when the 17th of November will arrive. So in the last video I did a small introduction on what all of this is, and it was the 16th of November, which was one day before the game actually began. Today it's the 17th of November, which means the games has officially begun. So the first thing I want to take a look at is the map. Okay, so did I manage to get where I wanted to? Unfortunately not. So this is the newer version of the map. So you can see, this is the middle island where I wanted to spawn, but sadly I didn't manage to get there. As a matter of fact, no one managed to get there. Everyone has spawned either on the rightmost island, where we can see NSR, the Kriegarian and the Venatian Republic, and also Metallina. Looks like this guy actually managed to join the game. Good for him. Me, on the other hand, I spawned on the leftmost island. You can see Latiania, then we have Ruberia and the Eisenwald Kingdom. So it looks like all players are just on two islands. As I said, this is not what I wanted, but it was something I predicted will be really likely. But this is not as bad, because since I'm here, first of all, I'm really close to Ruberia, so it might be a wise move to make him my ally. And actually there is already a lot of stuff that has happened, some of these regarding Ruberia, but one step at a time. And over here we have the Eisenwald Kingdom. You know, he's pretty far away, so I'm not worried. So my plan is I really want to capture this island. Like, sure, there's probably not any resource, but look how close Ruberia is. So if I had to guess, the Eisenwald Kingdom would look something like this. This will be Ruberia, and this will be me, or maybe a little closer. After all, I have all of this bottom island where there is frozen land, taiga, and woodlands. So, you know, it's not bad. But if we let Ruberia take all of the islands, that means that, you know, he has a pretty good advantage. Islands are really good strongholds. So I think I just want to focus, even if it means I lose a bit of territory. As long as I have this bottom part and this island, I feel really comfortable. Then from that I can just do a British move and conquer every single island. And I hope I can be the first one to get on the big middle island and make maybe another colony. Over here we got the northern state of Rus, the Kriegarian Empire, the Venatian Republic, and Metallina. If I had to guess, the borders probably are going to look something like this. So this will be Kriegarian, the north state will be something like this, and this will be divided in half between the Venatian Republic and Metallina. Yeah, the Kriegarian Empire is going to have a hard time expanding unless he declares war on the NSR, on the Venatian Republic, to capture territory. And otherwise, I guess he could go for the tropical island. Like, you know, that is a pretty cool move. The NSR, I expect him to go here, maybe here. The Eisenwald, probably here, and maybe Ruberia could also go here. Most likely here. But for me, I just want these three islands. I'm pretty sure they are mine because Ruberia is pretty close. So I might lose this island, but I might be able to get these three smaller islands, which all things considered, maybe it's a fair trade. But of course I want to get a really big piece, like maybe something like this, where I get the green but also part of the desert. Something tells me there's going to be really good resource in this desert. But of course there is another desert over here, so maybe I could try to go over here. But okay, this is pretty much everything for the map. Now let's get into what happened in the first day of the Nation RP server. Okay, so the first action was made by me. Latiania asked for the representative of Ruberia and Eisenwald Kingdom to meet for a diplomatic meeting. Ruberia responds almost immediately with an approval. Eisenwald Kingdom has not yet answered. So that's the first thing to have ever happened. The second thing that has happened, it's also something I did. Basically, long story short, I have a tank called the LT1 tank. It's kind of a mix between a light tank and a tankette. I made this tank with 3 ideas. It must be really light, it must be reliable, and it must be cheap to produce. So my idea was to mass produce the LT1 and sell it to pretty much the entire server. Everyone that will buy the LT1 will allow me to get money, so I could invest those money into making my nation better. So the first guy to buy my tanks was the northern state of Rus. We have agreed on a number of 300 LT1 tanks. Since all of this is fictional, the pound doesn't exist, the euro doesn't exist, the dollars doesn't exist, the yens, they don't exist. So the way that we did this is I took the weight of one of my tank, so I told him, okay, look, I'm going to give you 300 of my tanks in exchange of 1,400 tons of exported materials. So basically I give Northern State 300 tanks, and Northern State in return has to give me 1,400 exported materials. It can be fuel, metal, anything that I want. Next, we got the world news. Eisenwald Kingdom declares that yesterday an ADP-113, which is a locomotive, registered as 6,395, has accomplished the world record for the heaviest load pulled by a locomotive. The locomotive has pulled a staggering 6,205 tons. So, Eisenwald Kingdom has made a newspaper explaining how their locomotive are the strongest in the world. After that, I made a newspaper article. Official reports show that this year has been Latianian most fulfilling harvest in the nation history. Vegetable, fruits and wheat are the most they have ever been. Pretty much I'm trying to tell everyone, hey look, I make a lot of food. So if you guys want to trade with me because you need food, you can ask me. I'm definitely trying to aim for the frozen land nations since I know they have a harder time making food. Okay, so another thing that happened a little before this, it's Ruberia. So do you know Ruberia, the nation which is pretty much my neighbor? Okay, so just as I am selling tanks, Ruberia, it's kinda my competitor on the market. Me and Ruberia are currently the only nations selling stuff. I am selling my mass-produced light tank. Ruberia instead has a little more variety. They are selling old bolt-action rifle, some of their tankettes, and some of their naval barge ships. After that, something really exciting, probably the most exciting thing in the first day has happened. The nation of Genovona collapsed into a brutal civil war. Newspaper everywhere. Genovona at civil war. Citizens outside of the capital naming themselves the Venatians force, arming themselves with anything they can find. The capital is at siege. The ports are burning and everything is a bloodbath. So, this guy, which is the leader of Venetian Republic, he actually was the only one to choose his nation with a civil war. So him, as the Venetians, has to fight against Genovona. And, sure, I'm trying to sell tanks to make a profit, since I want to have the money to invest. But other than that, I want to expand my influence on the world. So I was like, damn, the Venetians are having a civil war. Let's see if I can sell them some tanks. So the Latianian have got into contact with the Venetians resistance, and long story short, the Venetians don't want to buy, or maybe they don't have the money to buy tanks from Latiania. But since Latiania wants to expand their control, their influence, they are like, okay, so we are not going to sell you tanks, but we're going to send some troops overseas to help you win the civil war. And the Venetians are like, oh my god, thank you troops, it's such a nice gesture. And this looks fine, but there is a problem. I'm going to explain later. The next and currently least newspaper of day one is named Prelude to Peace or the Dawn of the Imperial Reckoning. In the wake of the cowardly and the ill-fated attempts upon the life of the Emperor, the swift capture of the traitorous conspirators has ignited a far-reaching purification of the aristocratic. What began as an inquiry has unveiled a rot festering within the noble house, compelling the empire to act with unwavering resolves. Several nobles found conflict through their silence or their scheme have been seized and brought before the people to face public execution. Their fate shared with the wretched would dare aspire to regicide. Let their demise stand as a solemn warning. The Emperor's justice is absolute, and the empire will cleanse itself of treachery, root and branch. So the Krigarian Empire has finally joined the battle. This is how they start, with a failed attempt to the Emperor life. So I wonder if the Gringarian Empire is going to become one of the world-leading forces. But anyway, returning back to Latiania. So, Latiania has promised the Venetians to send troops overseas. This is for a couple of reasons. The first one, of course, is Latiania wants to expand their control, their influence all over the world. After all, if Latiania could have territory in all three major places, that will solidify them as one of the greatest nations to have ever lived. The second reason it's because the Latianian generals want their soldiers to get real experience. Training might be good, we have a professional army, but nothing, it's like war. So by sending troops overseas, they will not only impress the Venetians, but at the same time, our troops are going to be more experienced than any another. So that will be a great success. But here we run into two big problems. Currently my navy is in a pretty mediocre spot. I have some ships, but I'm missing some another really important parts of what makes a navy complete. So currently the only way I have to bring troops overseas is using my cruiser, the Latin. And while I could do that, the number of troops I could bring will be really limited. I have the first problem. Find a way to move a big amount of troops along the sea. I am building some cargo ships, but they will not be ready anytime soon. So if you remember before, I said Ruberia was selling cargo ships, and if you connect the dots, I think you can guess where this is going. So I went to the Ruberia market and I have asked to purchase one cargo ship. We have negotiated a little bit the price, and at the end I managed to get one fully working and equipped cargo ship with a cost of 5,200 material tons. A bit expensive, but at least this is a much quicker option. So, okay, I solved the first problem, but don't I have a second one? Yes, I have a second problem. While I did promise to the Venatians that I will send my troops to help them win their revolution civil war, I didn't take into account that there could be possible repercussion on the Latianian nation. What do I mean with this? I said that I was going to send troops overseas to help the Venatians. But some nations might actually not really like this. Like, if you don't have a good enough reason to start a war or to join a war, another nations could give you some repercussions. So, you know, I have a problem and I have three options. First solution, I find a reason that's good enough in the eyes of another nations that allows me to send troops to support the Venatians. Option 2. I have no reason to send troops to the Venatians, but I do it anyway, possibly facing repercussions. Or number 3. I don't have a reason to send troops, and because of that I don't send the troops I promise to the Venatians, but by doing so I will lose their trust. So now I am in a pretty particular position, and this is pretty much where the first day has ended. Will the Latianian force help the Venatians, or will they not go in the fear of the repercussion another nations might inflict on us? If you want to know how the story continues, you're gonna have to stick around. Hello everyone, I'm Chronological Gamer and welcome back to the Nation RP server. It's the second day, which is 18 November 1930. So, a lot of stuff has happened in the second day, but before I say any of this, I would like to make a small clarification. When I recorded the first two videos, I was thinking about making this a series. Like, you know, I make the video, after one day I upload it, and people tell me, hey, why don't you try to do this, and this? However, there is a rule in the server which is absolute mandatory. No metagaming. What is metagaming? Well, in easy words, metagaming is someone trying to maximize whatever result you can get. And we have this rule because metagaming it's not fun. This rollerplay it's not a game of Hearts of Iron 4. So because of that, instead of making this into like a playable kind of series, I think I will actually make this look like more as a documentary. But anyway, without out of the way, let's begin with the first stuff that has happened in the second day. I am the leader of the nation of Latiania, and I have promised to the Venatians, which is a group of revolutionists fighting a civil war, that I will be sending them support. The problem is that, first of all, I need a navy, which I'm working on it. But the second bigger problem, I need a reason to actually send my troop overseas. So what I need to do is have a good enough reason so the other countries will not think suspiciously of me. So what I did is I sent an urgent telegram to the Venatian forces, but I did a huge mistake. So let me read you the telegram I sent to them. This it's Latiana. It's with discontent that we inform the Venatians that a problem has risen. If a valid enough reason is not found for Latiania to transport their troops overseas, there might be repercussions that might affect both nations. So Latiania asks of the Venatians that they make a public statement confirming that a temporary military alliance has been made between Latiania and the forces of the Venatians, and otherwise we might not be able to send the promised force to help in your war efforts. Well, let's look at this from the perspective of the Venatians. They have no idea that me, Latiania, needs a reason to send my troops overseas. So, from Venatians' perspective, it doesn't look like, okay, Latiania needs a reason because otherwise another nations might interfere. No. From the Venatians' point of view, this looks like Latiania has promised us to send troops, but now they are backing down, and I didn't realize this until I got their first answer. Venatians officials are confused with the sudden coldness of Latianian spoken people. Officials begin doubting the Latianian principles of supporting the freedom and success of the common folk. The offer of troops was not requested by the Venatians. Instead, it was supposedly an action of goodwill of Latiania. Forcing a military alliance, although it might be temporary, seems ill-intentioned when considering that one party is fighting for their sovereignty and another pretends to hold a large amount of political stake. If repercussions are on the way because Vitania is wanting to prioritize themselves over a futile plea for a bluntly one-sided military alliance, then so be it. It is the face of the Latianians officials that will be stained in this encounter. Latiania shall consider themselves lucky the Venatians do not feel insulted at disrespect to freedom and survival of the common man. So once I received this message, I realized, oh no! This is a huge misunderstanding. So I send a second, even more urgent telegram. We believe there has been a tremendous misunderstanding. It is not the nation nor the forces of Latiania that are seeking a valid reason to support the Venatians' efforts. If anything, Latianians people will be ready to support anyone fighting for their freedom. The real culprits behind this attempted sabotage are Latiania neighbor countries which have secretly reached to us to inform us the following. If we had dared to send troops overseas to help the Venatians revolutionists without a valid enough reasons, there will be repercussions. Such is the reasons the Latianians army is begging the Venatians to make a public statement regarding a temporary military alliance, as if a valid reason for transporting troops overseas it's not found soon enough, we won't be able to uphold our promise. We hope this clarifies any misunderstanding. The next 5 minutes have been some of the most intense ones. 5 minutes that felt like 5 hours. But after those 5 minutes, we finally got an answer. Venatians official understand that there was a misunderstanding and will rectify their prior message. A treaty will not be signed. However, as the nation of Latiania is willing to help, Venatians Revolutionaries will publicly announce the welcome deployment of Latiania troops on Venatian soil. Vitania asks for the names of the nations that have the audacity to resist freedom. So, okay, we managed to clear the misunderstanding and we didn't lose the trust of the Venatians revolutionists. I send one final telegram. The Latianians officials are really relieved to understand that the misunderstanding has been resolved. The nation in question is Ruberia. They were the first to inform us that we were demanded to have a good enough reason and told us, helping anyone just out of the kindness of your heart, it's not a valid reason. It wouldn't be an understatement to say that we were taken aback by such message, the alliance will be nothing more than a cover operation to have a valid enough reason in the eyes of the another's. This way, Latiania could prevent a worsening of their relationship with Ruberia while still being able to support the Venatians. But for the time being, this is where the Latiania-Venatians situation is at a halt. Next, let's look at the newspaper. 2 new articles have been written. The first one is from Latiania. Across the ocean, the Latiania cruiser, the Latin, has crossed the ocean all the way to the northern state of Rus, the nation which has requested 300 tanks. Once the Latin reached the seaport of the northern state of Rus, it was welcomed by cheers by the population. Because of the unbelievable journey around the globe, the Latin has gained a record for the longest distance ever traveled without ever stopping by sea. So, in case you don't know, the northern state of Rus, or NSR for short, they have requested me 300 LT-1 tanks. Second article by the Kriegarian Empire, the Emperor's Purge. After delivering imperial justice to the traitors, the Emperor turned his gaze toward the realm itself, vowing to cleanse the nation by rooting out every corrupt official and exposing the criminals who lurked in the shadows. What began as a simple purge soon became a sweeping reform, as the Emperor agents moved through every province, uncovering bribery, dismantling secret networks, and dragging long untouched offenders in the light. Rumors spread quickly. Some spoke of fear, another spoke of long-awaited justice, but all agreed on one thing. The Emperor will stop at nothing to purge every last trace of corruption from his dominion. So the Kriegarian Empire, it's definitely showing their means of trading with traitors. Next, we have something that actually began in the previous video. So on day 1, I asked Eisenwald Kingdom and Ruberia to have a really nice diplomatic meeting. Ruberia answered me immediately on the first day, saying, yes, we accept. Eisenwald Kingdom instead has waited an entire day, and this is their answer. The Queen refuses to talk to strangers without any prospect of gain. So the Eisenwald Kingdom will not be attending this diplomatic meeting. On top of that, Eisenwald Kingdom has actually made the first expansion in the entire server. So this, it's the image. I know it's really low quality, I'm sorry, but basically the reason behind this expansion, as the Eisenwald Kingdom has stated, we are looking for a more fertile territory so that we can start producing food. So my idea was to maybe try to trade with the Eisenwald Kingdom. So I give them food and they give me metal. But if the Eisenwald actually wants to expand to make their own food, that means I might lose the capabilities to monopolize the Eisenwald lack of food supplies. So this is pretty concerning. So, over here I'm going to introduce a new topic. How does action work in the Nation RP server? Basically, we have a dice going from 1 to 20. If you want to do an action like expanding your territory, attacking other nations, you need to roll the dice. So the first ever dice roll has thrown, and the result was 11. 11 out of 20 for scouting. The scouting is successful. Second dice throw, 17. 17 out of 20. The Eisenwald Kingdom successfully managed to expand their border. The Eisenwald Kingdom doesn't really seem to like diplomacy, and instead they have decided to expand their territory. Next, something really amazing has happened. A new nation is joining the fight. So, really quick, the new nation is called Zulongde. There are two country leaders. One is called Edith Dem Duyun and the other Vensui Nkadzhli. They are an Auditorian democracy. They speak Cantonese and Mandarin. They are the first nation to be a complete isolationist country. Their military type is semi-professional and their country origin is an aging state. So not a century-old country, but just aging state. So I guess they are old, but not super old. This is their flag. I hope this new nation is going to be accepted, because it will probably bring a lot of variety to the server. Last but not least, Ruberia. So, since the Eisenwald Kingdom refused, they will not be attending. However, if you remember, Ruberia did accept to partake in this diplomatic meeting. So, in the end, it was just me and Ruberia. So anyway, the discussion between Latiania and Ruberia began. So, the first thing that we discussed about was our island. So, Latiania, Ruberia and the Eisenwald Kingdom are currently the only nations that are living on the leftmost island. So, Latiania is discussing with Ruberia what should we call our island? After all, we live here, so it will be cool to have a name that isn't just leftmost island, you know? An answer has not been reached, but we are thinking about it. The second thing we have been discussing, it's a common currency. So Latiania and Ruberia are thinking about making their own currency. Something that the leftmost island is going to use. This way trading and marketing should be easier. The last thing Ruberia and Latin are discussing, it's a secret alliance between the two of them against the Eisenwald Kingdom. Tell me, Ruberia, how do you feel about the Eisenwald Kingdom? And Ruberia responds rather uneasy about it. And Latiania responds, are you afraid of the Eisenwald Kingdom just as I am? And Ruberia responds, from what we know, we can admit we are a bit afraid of them. And so Latiania puts a statement. The nation of Latiania would like to form an alliance with the nation of Ruberia in case of a possible invasion by part of the Eisenwald Kingdom. The alliance goals are simple. If the Eisenwald Kingdom was to invade Ruberia and or Latiania, the two nations shall join forces under the pretext of defending their territory. After a long time of silence, Ruberia responds that the council is deliberating. Latiania puts the statement that accepting this alliance will be a great way to improve the bond and diplomacy between our countries, which we almost call neighbors. But anyway, I will say this is the perfect cliffhanger for episode 2, or maybe it's more correct to say day 2, because I think I want to make all of these videos into one big final video, documentary style. Update on day 2. I'm recording this after finishing the video, but this is really important, so I don't want to miss it. Basically, what happened is Latiania and Ruberia have reached an accord. Instead of just having a normal alliance, they decided to settle for a defensive pact. The defensive pact has the following conditions. 1. All nations part of the pact must work together into keeping the pact as fair and straight as possible for all nations. 2. All nations part of the pact have the freedom to exchange information, resource and equipment with other members of the pact. 3. All nations part of the pact have the right to keep their secrets secret from another members of the pact. 4. In the case that a nation part of the pact is in a crisis, all another nations also part of the pact have the obligation to help the nation in crisis, no matter how small their help might be. 5th. In the case a nation part of the pact is being invaded by a foreign country, all other nations part of the pact have the obligation to help the nation under siege by any means possible. This includes, but it's not limited to, supporting them with your army, lending weapons, lending supplies, and offering asylum to the civilians of the invaded country. 6th. If a country wishes to enter the pact, already existing members of the pact will have to accept them. 7th, if a country wishes to leave the pact, they will have to announce it 1 month prior to them actually being allowed to leave the pact. And last, if a country part of the pact invades another nation part of the pact, that nation will immediately be kicked out of the pact. So both Ruberia and Latiania have agreed to all of these conditions, and they are now the 2 first members of the defensive pact. And on top of that, Latiania and Ruberia have decided on the following border. So, since Eisenwald is expanding, Latiania and Ruberia also want to expand their territory. So Latiania was like, hey, do you like this map? And Ruberia was like, yeah, I do like this map. This way everyone gets everything. So I'm going to have that island, which I'm really happy about. Hello everyone and welcome to day 3 of the Nation Rollerplay game. So this is the 3rd day of the rollerplay, which is supposed to be 19 November 1930. So, what happened in the 3rd day? So, the first thing that has happened on day 3, it was Latiania sending an urgent telegram to the Venatians. Basically, the telegram says the following. Latiania is proud to announce that the relationship levels with Ruberia have improved. This shall prevent them from taking any sort of action regarding this whole situation. For such reason, it is advised that Venatian forces do not try to get into contact with Ruberia, as it might lead to misunderstandings. Instead, keep your focus on the war you're fighting on. Latianian reinforcements will arrive soon. So pretty much I'm telling the Venatians, hey look, my relationship with Ruberia has gotten better. They shall not be taking any action if I try to send my troops overseas, which is still a work in progress. Something else that has happened, it's Ruberia trying to expand. So on day 2, we saw Eisenwald Kingdom expanding. Now it's Ruberia turn. So Ruberia is trying to, of course, going for the island right next to them, which is probably the best choice. So how did it go? Well, Ruberia had to roll a 10 or above to successfully get on the island, and they rolled a 9. So, unfortunately, they did not manage to get on the island. You are only allowed to capture territory, to like advance, to expand only once per day. Because, you know, otherwise everyone could just keep expanding and it will make the rollerplay last really little, which is not fun. So anyway, after Ruberia failed, it was my turn. So now I also wanted to expand my territory. And likely, I didn't get the same luck as Ruberia. I needed an 11 or above to succeed. And I got 2. Just 2. So easy to say I didn't make it. But at least to make it up for it, I asked, can I at least scout the territory so that tomorrow I will have a better chance to succeed? So once again, I needed an 11 or above to have a successful scouting. This time I got 13, so at least I managed to get somewhere. So tomorrow, when I will try to expand again, I should have a easier time, since I scouted ahead of time. And this is pretty much everything that has happened regarding the expansion of territory. Nobody on the rightmost island has really done anything. Another important news is Latiania opens their food market to the public. So I was like, okay, it's time to actually start and trying to get more income. So yeah, once again, I'm trying to convince Isenwald Kingdom to have to rely on me for their food supplies. But the queen of the Isenwald Kingdom, it's not stupid, and she probably knows what I'm trying to go for. And the last thing to have ever happened on day 3, it's a brand new country. So, the new country, it's called Brea Industrial Applications. Their country leader is Fort Vincent. Their government structure, it's a mega corporation, which, you know, they used the word governmental structure rather than ideology, because I don't think mega corporation is really an ideology, but whatever. Their languages are English and French. Isolanism level, they are semi-isolated. Military type, they are a professional army. Country origin, they are a young nation. And local climate, it's the desert. So this will actually be their first country to start in a desert. Also an update from the Zulongde Nation. They have changed their climate from woodlands to tropical. And that's pretty much everything that has happened on day 3. Hello everyone, Chronological Gamer here, and welcome to day 4 of the Nation RP game. This it's the 20th of November 1930. The 4th day has seen a lot more stuff than the 3rd one. So, first thing first, we have yet a new nation joining the game. This country name is Fabian Federation. They have 3 leaders, Velisariev, Tambov, and Skobolev. Their ideology is militaristic dictatorship. They speak Russian and Latin. Their Isolanism level is pretty open, which is pretty strange for a dictatorship, but whatever. Their military type, it's semi-professional. Their country origin, it's a century-old state, and their climate, it's the plains. And this, it's what their flags looks like. So anyway, next we got an updated version of the map, and I have to say this looks really epic. So, we can see over here we have Latiania, my country, being pretty much on the leftmost side of the map. Right next we have our allies Ruberia. We can also see we have all of the rivers. And apparently there is no river going through the island. So, you know, this is pretty interesting. I guess it's the only way the enemy could actually approach. Ruberia has a lot of rivers, which makes them probably really easy in case of an invasion. Like, you know, rivers are really commonly used as defensive lines because crossing a river, it's a lot harder than crossing just a normal terrain. I will even dare to say that crossing a river, it's harder than crossing a mountain, but that's just my opinion. Over here, Eisenwald has Zulongdi. There is Brea. They are the only ones in the middle island. Anyway, over here we have the Venatians Republic. And you can see that they are on 3 different colors. So you might be wondering what's going on. When, in case you don't remember, Venatians Republic are fighting a civil war. So the blue, it's them. Like, the blue color, it's the Venatians. This dark color, like the black, it's actually the fascist, and the red, it's the communist. So, all things considered, the Venatians seem to be winning the war, but territory alone, it's not really enough. Over here we have Metal Line, NSR, and the Kriegarian Empire. So, overall, pretty cool, like this map, all the style, with also the grid, the coordinates, I like it a lot. Next, we got our favorite part, the newspapers. So, first newspaper of day 4, Venatian Outrage. Fascist scams murder the leader of the elective monarchs, Otamarus Mamulkian, in a cowardly engagement. This and the unjust treatment of troops captured by the fascists make the elective monarchists show their hand. All prisoners of war are executed by the elective monarchs, their bodies strung up on battlements as their heads are fired in artillery pieces. So we got the full outrage. Jesus Christ. All sides are reminded of the inevitable victory of the elective monarchs, and their resistance is futile. Despite this, the fascists and the communists are still fighting. The new monarch, Enrica Dandola, strive to end the reign of fascists and communists, ruining her country. So, the Venetians are starting to get serious. Next, we got a newspaper from Latiania, the Twin Ships. Latiania announces that they have finally completed the construction of their very first merchant ship, the Conveyor. At the same time, the merchant ships from Ruberia has arrived, which in honor of this event was named the Ruberian, because of the coincidence of both ships joining the Latiana Navy at the same time. They have been called by their crews the Twin Ships. So now I finally have 2 merchant ships, which will allow me to go oversea a lot easier. Last newspaper of day 4, Brea involvement in Venetian civil war. So Brea, one of the newer countries, the one that was all about economics, has made the following newspaper. In exchange for the rights to set up a recruitment office on Venetian soil, Brea has offered a monetary aid package consisting of $2 billion dollars. I guess we will call them dollars. And other than that, they have also done that in exchange for docking and repair rights in Brea ports for a period of 5 years to the newly elected Venetian monarch Enrica Dandola. So it looks like Latiana is not the only nation that is really intrigued into helping the Venetians. I honestly really like what Brea is doing. So anyway, let's take a closer look to the Venetians. So, the Venetians have launched 2 attacks, one against the fascists and one against the communists. Forces on the Eastern Front assault. For the first time in war, 3 divisions of vehicles will be used to storm the cities, along forces of light and heavy infantry. They need to roll a 12 or above to be successful. And they roll an 18, so they are successful and manage to capture the city, but many of the documents have been destroyed, so they don't know the enemy next move. So overall, a great success for the Venetians. Meanwhile, tension rises between the Eisenwald Kingdom and the Kriegarian Empire. It looks like the Queen and the Emperor don't really like too much each another, and this situation could actually get a lot worse, as in the Venetians' embassy it is reported an envoy sent by the Queen of Eisenwald has arrived. The envoy is here to discuss a potential deal. So, this is just speculation, but what I think Eisenwald is trying to do, they want to help the Venetians, and later on they are going to be like, do you remember when we helped you? How about you help us invade the Kriegarian Empire? But of course this is only speculation, I have no idea. Eisenwald getting in contact with Venetian Republic, out of all nations, Venetian Republic. From the first 3 days, from what I could understand, the Eisenwald Kingdom kinda wants to be really isolated. So it's so strange that first they were like so secretive, and now they want to make friends with the Venetians. So, now it's Latiania turn. If you remember, on day 3, we tried expanding but didn't succeed. But I did some scouting ahead of time. So now that we have the scouting, and this is the second day, and I mean, it's not like I'm going to get a really bad turn 1, which is the worst possible result. However, since I did scouting the prior day, the 1 didn't really did a full effect. It was changed more to a 2. So basically what happened is I tried to send troops with 70 trucks to expand. Well, because of the fauna I wasn't able to expand and one of the trucks got damaged. If I did not have the scouting bonus, it's possible I could have lost a lot more trucks, or maybe even just lost like my troops. So you know, 1 damaged truck, it's probably the best that could have happened to me with a 1. So you know, it sucks, I didn't manage to expand, but I was not going to leave empty-handed. Roll the dice to build an outpost. So the dice is rolled, and I get 18. Okay, thanks God, a good roll. So now I have this outpost, which shall be a buff, just like the scouting. 10, I have a small chat with Ruberia. So if you remember, Ruberia, it's kinda my ally. I mean, we don't have like an actual alliance, but we have a pact of defense. So I reached out to Ruberia, and I was looking at their military equipment, and I was like, you have some particular tanks, can you tell me more about them? And after chatting for a while, I decided to buy one of their tankettes, which has a 75mm gun. And the reason why I decided to buy this tank, it's because I kinda want to make my own version. Last but absolutely not least, now that I finally have my 2 merchant ship, I decided that I was finally going to send my reinforcements to the Venatians. So, I took my last action of the day and said, roll the dice. Send my cargo ship from Latiana to the Venatian Republics. I had to choose a really particular route where we went from Latiana, and from the left I will need to go down all the way up to the Venatian Republic. So anyway, to escort my cargo ship, I send 40 patrol boats and my cruiser ship, the Latin. So now I had to roll the dice. I was really stressed because I had no idea what could happen. If I rolled a 1, there was a chance that maybe all of those ships could have sunk, and in the end, the number that came out was 19.
Oh my god! Oh, I did it!
So thanks God I managed to roll a 19, and this gives me a speed boost. So basically by using the current of the ocean, my troops will arrive in 2 days. Whenever it will be day 6, my troops will finally reach the Venatians. Oh yeah, there is one last thing that has happened on day 4, which I really want to talk about. So, since the beginning of the games, I was the first to always reach out to Ruberia. For the first time, which happened on day 4, Ruberia has reached out to me, and I have a proposal. What is your proposal, Ruberia? And they said, we would like to propose a railway construction project between our 2 countries. So Latiania responds, we are really happy to partake in this project of building a communitary railway between the 2 of our nations. Some last minutes update on something that has happened on day 4. The Venatians send a message to Latiana. So, if you remember, Latiania has built a statue in honor of Henry Le Krieg of the Kriegarian Empire. So the Venatians were like, hey, can you destroy the statue? And Latiania was like, wait, why do you want me to destroy the statue? Well, you see, we don't really like what the Kriegarian Empire is doing. The Kriegarian Empire is killing anyone that opposes them. Latiania is like, for now, we're going to keep the statue, but if the Kriegarian Empire does anything bad, we will take it down. And we have settled for this. Next, Zulong the Nation. So the Zulong Nation is the first ever nation in the server to have created their nation in the tropical environment. So, you know, it's pretty cool because they are right in the middle of the map. So anyway, the first move made by the Zulong Empire was to try and expand on another island. So anyway, for the role of expanding his territory, he needed an 11 or above, and unfortunately he only gets a 10, so he decided to do another action. He wanted to try to get contact with Winatians, so they needed a 10 or above, and they rolled a 5. The Emperor decides to do nothing. And the last thing for the last minute update on day 4, it's Ruberia trying to expand. So I tried to expand and I failed twice. Now this is Ruberia's second turn. So they want to, of course, go for the island. So they need an 8 or above, and they got a 4. Last but not least, the last thing to happen on day 4, launching the construction of a railway line to Latiana. And guess what? Ruberia got the first natural 20 of the entire server! So they managed to build a really good railway line which almost managed to get all the way to Latiana in just like what, 1 day? And that was pretty much everything that has happened on day 4. Welcome back to the 5th day of the Nation RP server, 21 November 1930. So we can skip immediately to the newspaper, The Pride of Isenwald. Today the Imperial Eisevaldian Navy has performed training operations through its notorious ice sheets. The battleship ENS Heidi has proved once again that no obstacle can block her, as she steamed at a steady 6 km per hour through the thick ice sheets while performing gunnery exercise. I guess it's cool. Anyway, the next newspaper by the Kriegarian Empire. The assassination that shook the Empire. A few days ago, the Empire was cast into shock and mourning when the Emperor's mother, Empress Jasmine van Goltz, was ruthlessly cut down by an assassination sent by the corrupted nobles. These traitors, driven by ambition and malice, had not been content with a single death. Their true aim had been far more catastrophic. Their blades were meant for the current Empress and the Imperial heir as well. A calculated strike intended to sever the dynasty in one brutal sweep. In the wake of her murder, the imperial court was plunged into grief. A state funeral was swiftly organized, its solemn rites drawing citizens from every corner of the realm to honor the fallen empress and to bear witness to the sorrow that now hung over the throne. But when the final prayers were spoken and the procession dissipated, the emperor rose from grief transformed. Fueled by anguish and righteous fury, he vowed to hunt down every hand that had played part in the treachery and triples his efforts to purge the nation from all of the vile scum that had dared to threaten the life of his family and his empire. Over here we learn that the mother of Henry le Krieg, the current emperor of the Kriegarian Empire, has been murdered. So we will see where the story will continue. The last newspaper of day 5 comes from the Fabian Federation, so this means this is their first newspaper. Beantastic Harvest. The Fabian Ministry of Agriculture has reported a long-awaited surplus in the harvest of the Fabian bean, a legume known for being 3 times as large as a normal bean, but tricky to harvest in recent years due to an invasive pest species. After several years of conflict, finally, what can only be considered as beantastic, it's a surplus that has surpassed all expectation in magnitude. Next, let's go and take a look at every single action all countries have done. So first on the list, it's Eisenwald Kingdom. The Venetians have made some sort of deal with the Eisenwald, where Eisenwald will be sending over troops. So anyway, they needed a 13 or above for their expedition to start successful, and they got 13, which is the very least they needed to succeed, so they did it. However, since this was the really lowest possible they could have asked for, it will take them 2 to 3 days to reach the Venetians. Next, let's go to the Venetians, since we've been talking about them. The first one was launching an offensive against the fascist side of the civil war. They needed an 8 or above to win, and they got a natural 20. So they managed to pretty much deal a really hard casualties on the fascist. So on the fascist side, the Venetians are winning, like they're having a really good victory. So the Venetians are crushing the fascists with rather ease. The second action they took was to try and make a naval blockade to stop the communists from reaching out in the sea. They needed a 10 or above to succeed. And they did not get as lucky, as they only got 3. Which resulted in the blockade being a failure, but the Venetians did not give up there. Since they lost against the communists, they turned back to the fascists, which are on their last leg, so the Venetians need to roll a 6 or more to completely defeat the fascists. And they rolled a 19! They almost got 2 natural 20s. So it looks like the Venetians are having a easy time dealing with the fascists, and actually they have defeated them. Instead, the communists looks like they're going to be a little more of a trouble. Next, we got Ruberia. Ah, my good old friend Ruberia. So for the 3rd time in a row, they are trying to expand on the island right next to theirs. Will this day be their lucky day? So, Ruberia prepares all of their navy, some planes, logistical trucks, and everything they wanted to try to make this landing work. They needed an 11 or above to succeed, and they got 11! They did it! They managed to land on the island. Next, we got the Kriegarian Empire. So, the Kriegarian Empire wanted to expand, but they didn't want to do it blindly. So they sent recon planes to scout the area ahead. They needed a 10 or more to have successful scouting. And they got a 14, which means their scouting was successful. Last but not least, we got Latiana. So I took 4 actions this day. The first one was trying to improve my outpost that I built yesterday, so I needed a 10 or above to be successful, and I rolled a 7. So basically what happened is the structure fall apart during the night. But I didn't want to lose hope, so even though I had no buff to help me in the expedition, I decided to expand the Latiania border. I needed a 10 or above, and I got 11! So finally, Latiana managed to make their first successful expansion of the territory. Next, I tried to return to the project that I started but failed yesterday. So yesterday I tried to build a railway line and I got 2. So today I wanted to try again. So I needed a 14 or above. I got 4. So the last action I took on day 5 was to try and make a class for specialized engineers, which will mean better odds of success. I only needed to roll a 6 or above, and I got 1. So basically the class was a huge failure and the teacher teach my engineers basically nothing. And yeah, this is where it ends and I will return with another resume on day 6. Hello everyone, I'm Logical Gamer and welcome back to day 6 of the Nason Rollerplay server, 22 November 1930. So day 6 has been pretty tame, but I do have some really sad news. The Kriegarian Empire has left the game. Pretty much the Kriegarian was not having fun and decided, I'm sorry guys, I'm going to leave. Without a royal family, the Kriegarian Empire fell into chaos, and with it ended his dynasty. So the first nation to be eliminated, although not by a war, but just by some another stuff, was the Kriegarian Empire, which lasted 5 days. And it's time to move on. So, the Venatians. The Venatians are still fighting their civil war. The fascists have been defeated on day 5, but the communists are still fighting. But thanks God, the Latiania Navy has finally arrived. The Latianians bring 1 infantry battalion, 2 tank platoons, 1 artillery division, and medical supply for the Venatians. So easy to say that the Venatians have all of the support they could ever need to defeat the communists. Anyway, Ruberia. So, Ruberia. In the last day, we saw that Ruberia were finally successful into reaching the island. Although they had some setbacks, at least they finally made it on the island. So they needed a 4 or above to colonize the island, and they got 1. So because they rolled 1, what happened is that during a thunderstorm, lightning hit a fuel depot, sending everything ablaze, forcing an emergency evacuation. As Isenwald put it, this island is definitely cursed. Next, let's take a look at Latiania. On this day, I took 2 actions. The first one was upgrade the engineering school, so I needed a 10 or above, and I got 14, which means all of my future projects are going to be more successful. The second action I took was trying to expand to the east. I needed a 15 or above to succeed, and I got a 7. I mean, at least it wasn't a 1. Next, let's look at Isenwald Kingdom, doing some sort of experimental technology with really rare materials. So they needed a 5 or above to succeed, and they got a 1. So their project ends up being a disaster and they lost their rare materials. Oh, and actually, right I was ready to finish the resume, the newest newspaper has just came out, and it's from Isenwald Kingdom. Isenwaldian planes approved for public sales. For the first time in years, our glorious queen has agreed to open for sales of the AP2 and AP3 commercial airliners. Maybe those rare materials are meant for a new kind of commercial airplane. So anyway, this was everything for day 6, 22 November 1930, signing out. Hello everyone, I'm Logical Gamer and welcome back to the Nason RP server. This, it's the 7th day, which is in rollerplay terms 23 November 1930. So it has been officially 1 week since the games have begun. And good for us, we finally have an updated map of everything that has happened. The most important is we can see the Venatians. Meanwhile, we have Metal Line just standing here, and ASR standing here have not done a lot. And as you can see, the Kriegaren Empire has indeed been removed by the game. Rest in peace. Then we have the middle of the board, where we have the Zulongue, which has tried to expand over here. And you can see here there is like a red dot. Let's look at Brea, which has actually expanded. So in case you don't remember, Brea tried expanding once, and it failed. So he tried expanding a second time, and this time he was successful. So we got the Bayan Federation. So you know, that's pretty cool. Next we can see Latiana. Isenwald has been expanding quite a lot. So this, it's a close-up of Ruberia. And you can see Ruberia and the capital city, Rolia, which I have to say, it's a pretty cool name. And the island, because of every attempt Ruberia has failed, was named Doom Island. And there are the seaports of despair and misfortune. So yeah, we have the entire server has pretty much collectively agreed to call this Doom Island just because of every time Ruberia has failed to colonize it. Next, let's look at a newspaper. Today, we only have one new newspaper, which is from Isenwald Kingdom. Air show in Isenwald. Today, a brilliant air show showcasing brand new aircrafts of the kingdom has taken place in our capital. According to survey, it was a resounding success toward the visitors. So let's go to the country actions. Isenwald tried to expand, and they needed a 12 or above, and they got 15, which means they succeeded. Next, we got the Venatians. So the Venatians say, okay, the Latiania reinforcements have finally arrived. So the Venatians with the Latianians reinforcements launch an attack on the communist. So he needed a 13 or above, and he got a 2. So the Venatians, after failing their first attack, okay, maybe attacking is not going to work. Let's try to convince them. If you accept to end this pointless civil war, we will allow you to survive. So again, 13 or above, and he got a second 2. 2 2s in a row. It's really unfortunate. So pretty much the communists do not give up, and they're gonna keep fighting. They are not scared by the Venatians. But the Venatians still have a little bit of hope left, and they are like, okay, attacking. So pretty much the Venatians were like, we send every single spy and partisan we have to create havoc between the communist line. So he needed a 15 or above. The Venatians got an 18. This 18 could be the one thing saving the Venatians from losing the civil war. So the sabotage are successful. All of the cities that are under control of the communists and under chaos. And maybe this will give the Venatians the opportunity to counterattack tomorrow. Now let's go to Ruberia. So Ruberia, once again, is trying his attempts on colonizing Doom Island. So 10 or above and you succeed. 2 and he got that 2. Like Doom Island, it's just such a perfect name. Next, let's move to Latiana. So today, on day 7, I took 2 actions. The first one was scouting. So I needed a 9 or above for a successful scouting. And I got a 4, so all I could see were just some trees. But I didn't give up. Even with my unsuccessful scouting, I decided I'm going to advance and capture territory. So I needed a 14 or above. 18! So I managed to have a successful expedition, and the territory I captured you saw before on the world map. Next, let's move to Zulongde. So the Zulongde nation has tried to expand on their newer island, which they have called Casino. So they have built a seaport, and at this moment they didn't know yet that they were natives. So he gave a roll. So he needed a 13 or above to get the emperor to accept expand their territory, and he got a 19, which is almost a perfect. So the emperor approves of expanding the territory. So he rolled to try and keep expanding on an island. 10 or more and the roll will be successful. And he failed barely by getting a 9. So he tries one last time. 10 or above and he's going to succeed. And he got a 4. Now let's look at Brea. So the first action that Brea took on day 7 was trying to colonize and capture more territory. So they needed a 10 or above to be successful. They got a 16. Next, Brea did something really interesting, I have to say. They tried to build a naval blockade to stop the communists from using their seaports. So they needed a 11 or above to succeed. And they got a 15. They managed to build a successful blockade blocking any import by and for the communists. Last but not least, Brea has done perhaps something even crazier. He surrounded the Zulongde Empire. But why would he have done that? Well, Brea, it's a nation which has mostly a focus on economic, and the Zulongde are a closed nation, which means they don't really like to socialize and do a market. So Brea was like, let me roll to surround their island, so I will give them a demand. Either open your market to me so I can trade with you and make money, or I will open fire on your cities. So because this was a really crazy request, Brea needed a 15 or above to succeed. And they got 18. They got 18, which was successful. So they managed to encircle the empire, and they have sent their demands. Either open your nation to trading, or there will be consequences. I wonder if Brea and Zulongde, it's going to be the first war between two different nations we are going to see. And that was pretty much everything that happened on day 7. Hello everyone, I'm Chronological Gamer, and welcome back to the Nation RP server Day 8, which shall be 24 November 1930. So let's look at the few actions that actually happen on Day 8. So of course we have Ruberia. Good old Ruberia still trying to capture Doom's Island. 7 or above and they succeed. And they got 10. Oh my god, they got 10. Could this be the first day they actually succeed on colonizing the island fully? So Ruberia sends another action. Roll to see if I can successfully build a seaport and start to actually expand on the island. 10 or above and he will successfully manage to build a place on the island. And he got a 16. He got a 16. So the Doom's Island curse has finally been vanished. Ruberia managed to both land and build a colony on Doom's Island. Next, we have Latiana. And what action did I took today? Let me just increase the infrastructure of my entire nation. So I needed an 8 or above to succeed. And I got a natural 20! I got a 20, which is amazing. The infrastructure update, it's a total success. My population, it's really happy. All structure have been made better. And all of the damage roads have been repaired, so this will also help me with future logistics. However, only because that was my last action, it doesn't mean that was the last thing I did at all. As a matter of fact, I have improved my armored forces. So do you remember how I have the LT-1, which is my sort of light tank tankette? Well, I took the hull of the LT-1, I removed the turret and I put a gun shield, which allow me to put a much bigger gun. So I want to present to all of you the LT-81. So the LT-81, as you can probably guess, it's just an LT-1, but it has a much bigger gun, which allows it to take care of enemies with much bigger armors. So overall, I'm pretty happy. Last but not least, we have a conversation between Latiana and Ruberia. The conversation goes as following. Hello Ruberia, we from Latiana have a proposal. Or to better say, we have an idea. Okay, go on. You are aware of our defensive pact, and I was thinking it's time we start looking for some new members. Having a tiered member will probably be really beneficial to all of us. The member I want to bring to the defensive pact, it's the nation of Brea. What do you think? Why not? So Latiana and Ruberia are trying to get Brea to join their alliance. And this is for a couple of reasons. First of all, Brea is the economical nations. It's the nation that focuses mostly on the market, on making a profit. So being able to make someone like this an ally could help us provide us with funds for our weapons, for our nations, and also having such a rich nation as an ally, it means that it could help us in case we are under a crisis. The another reason is because Brea is on the middle island, while Ruberia and Latiania are on the leftmost island. So if we make an alliance, we can kinda build this triangle where we control this entire part of the ocean, which will be pretty cool. So this was everything that has happened on day 8, and I will be seeing you on day 9. Chronological Gamer here with a last minute of update on day 8. We have the new updated map, and the only thing about the updated map is that Isenwald has got even bigger, and they are getting closer to Ruberia, which by logic means they are also getting closer to me, which I'm not really happy about. So Ruberia should consider actually expanding on the mainland rather than just expanding on Doom Island. We also got a newspaper for day 8 from Isenwald. The brand new AP4 has entered service and is ready for operations. Thanks to its brand new engines and wing construction, allows for smooth long-range flights. But it looks like that the rightmost island might finally see some expansion because the northern state of Rus, or NSR for short, has tried his first expansion ever. It only took them 8 days, but oh well, better late than never. So they needed a 10 or above, and unfortunately they got 6, which means that they didn't lose any equipment, but the expedition did not succeed. Okay, and this was everything for day 8 last minute update. Hello everyone, Chronological Gamer here with the report for day 9 of the Nation Rollerplay server, 25 November 1930. So we got no maps update and no world news, so let's go quickly into every action someone has committed. So the first action of day 9 was by Isenwald Kingdom. Invest into the new territory. So anyway, they needed a 10 or above to succeed, and they got a 1 critical failure. So basically what happens is the expedition force do not learn about the motive to expand the territory, presumably to a corrupt official. The public finds out about the disappearing funds and unrest rises. Next, we got the Venatians. So the Isenwald Kingdom reinforcements have finally arrived. So the Venatians, with their reinforcements of pretty much half the server, say, we are going to launch a full-on attack against the communists. And they needed a 7 or above to succeed. And they got a 6, which unfortunately means the attack was not successful, but at least no major casualty has been encountered. But the Venatians don't lose hope. We send a full-on attack on the communists. So they needed a 5 or above to succeed. They got a 5, which was just barely enough. Apparently the communists somehow have built really strong defenses, so even though the Venatians have won this battle, the fact that it took the combined efforts of the Venatians, Latiania and Isenwald, it means that the communists must really be fighting back super hard. So, you know, I guess that's something for the records. So next we got Latiana, and let me tell you, today rolls for Latiana have been crazy. So, to begin the day, I started simple. I roll for a scouting, so 7 or above, and I get a good scouting, and I got 12. So now that I had a successful scouting, I was like, okay, let's send my troops to reach the East Coast. If I can reach the East Coast, at least I will completely build a barricade from where I am to the island. Because I started on the west, I managed to capture the middle, and now I want to get all the way to the east, so at least I have a really nice line. So I send the troops with binoculars and 100 trucks. I needed a 13 or above to succeed. 1. I got a critical failure 1. All of my troops and equipment has been lost. So I have only one last action. And out of desperation, I just say, roll to send a rescue team. But the dice was rolled anyway, and natural 20. This natural 20 saved the situation from being probably the worst day of Latiana history. Unfortunately, the natural 20 couldn't just do a miracle, but basically what happened is I managed to rescue 20% of the men I have sent. And that was pretty much everything that has happened on day 9, 25 November 1930. Hello everyone, Chronological Gamer here, and welcome back on day 10 of the Nation RP server, 26 November 1930. So, on day 10, some particular stuff has happened, so let's begin. Let's see how the Venatians are doing. So today, the Venatians took only one action, but it might be the most favorable action of the entire day. The Venatians do one last attack, this time after firing artillery from both naval and land forces. The tanks take the vanguard, the infantry takes the rear, the cavalry flanks into the border. Finally, all espionage troops conduct hit-and-run tactics on the semblance of supply and troops transport routes. We end this war tonight. So they need a 7 or above to succeed. They got 19. With a 19, the communists are finally defeated and Venetian Republic is finally free from out the civil war. So now we can go to the newspaper. Peace at last. The communists defeated. The elective monarchs are victorious. Peace on the Venetian nation is here. Enrica Dandola, now the elected monarch of the nation, trade abundance its promise to the world. However, for the foreseeable future, unified Vitania must look inward to repair itself and rebuild from the cruel civil war. All troops and envoys sent to the Venetian soil are thanked as they leave to return to their homes. A photo of the Venetians and Latiania and Isenwald soldiers celebrating their victory together. It's pretty much 3 different nations which joined together to fight a civil war. Next we have Ruberia. Ah, good old Ruberia, still fighting against Doom Island. So today, Ruberia has said the following: I want to make an action to extend my colonization efforts over Doom Island. So they needed an 11 or above to succeed. And they got 18. So pretty much they managed to colonize 2/3 of the island. So it looks like the curse of Doom Island might actually really be over. But anyway, that was everything that has happened on day 10. And this is much or less where the story of the server finishes. So you might be wondering, what was the point of this video? What was the point of this entire adventure? And the truth is, there wasn't really a point, it's just something we did for fun. And to be fair, for the first 2 weeks, it was a lot of fun to seeing everyone control their nation, etc. But now it's pretty much over. I don't think anyone is really interested and it's really a shame. So I want to give a big shout out to my friends that have made this entire thing. Even though it didn't last long, it was a lot of fun, and hey, at least I managed to get this video out of it. So if you're wondering why I am making this video, first of all, it's because I want to have something to upload on the channel. As you might have noticed, I haven't really been uploading a lot lately. It was a lot of fun, and I want to share this experience for everyone. And also, if you, yes, you watching this video want to do anything with this story, maybe you can continue your story using your imaginations. Maybe you want to write a fan fiction about everything that is going on. From Chronological Gamer, I will say that this is the end of the story. You know, maybe I could do a reaction to your fanfiction of how this nation is going to be created. After all, there are still so many questions that hasn't been answered. How was the world before all of these nations were created? Does religion even exist in this world? What is every nation going to do? What is the meaning? Like, how did this world get created? Does it follow the same rules as our planet? Who knows, maybe how the solar system of this planet works. But yeah, I think I've been talking too much. So anyway, I will say this was everything for this really long video. You have no idea how much it will take me to edit all of this, but whatever. Thanks so much for watching, and see you next time.